rifle, safely dead and out of our hair forever, thank God, the Kor'Kron Legion suddenly steps up and says, hey, we're going to go conquer Stormwind. We want the Hawktotem tribe to come with us. And so, of course, being the nomadic, always on the move sort of guild that we are, to set up for this fight, for this battle, we immediately agree, because that's really interesting, to go and attack the opposing faction's city, and go try to kill the king, or go try to just fuck with their auction house and things like that. That's one of the funnest things you can do in WoW. But in order to do this, we have to travel quite a ways out of Horde territory, away from any flight path, away from any. And this was before Cataclysm, when you could just fly anywhere. You had to actually take flight paths back then. So there were no Horde flight paths anywhere near Stormwind, anywhere near Ironforge, or any of those other places. So if you wanted to go attack them, you had a long way to go. So we decided to make an event out of it. Since the Hawktotem tribe was so used to traveling, and the Kor'Kron Legion, being an army, they have to march from A to B, and since it's a roleplay server, they would literally, line up in rows of 5 or whatever and march places. And they had the numbers to do this. It wasn't just 8 people. This was 40 people, or 20, 25, 28, somewhere in there. Quite a few. It was a sizable number of people at any given time, depending on which night of the week we were there. And I said, okay, in order to get to Stormwind, we're going to have to go from here to here, and then here to here, and then here to here, and it's over several regions. And if we're on the road, and we have to take the road to have any semblance of speed. So if we're on the road and we're going at a marching, traveling pace, the Alliance is going to see us coming a mile away, which is kind of what we want. So there'll be more people fighting us. We're not just going to jump into the city and kill NPCs. They're going to be waiting for us when we get there. So with the Kor'Kron Legion out front, decked out in their spiky Ogremar armor with red and black banners up, behind them is the Hawktotem tribe with all of our earthy colors and green and druids with bushes on their shoulders and kodos in the back and different things like that. So we were a very, very different pair of guilds, but we were very friendly with each other because we traded resources and information and things like that pretty often. So they were very close friends. So we're leading up the charge behind them, and what we decided to do is, any alliance force that stands in our way from A to B, the Hawktotem tribe has to stay back and let the Kor'Kron take the first strike at them, and if they fall, or if the alliance come into the group of the Hawktotem, then they can fight. So we kind of had to be second fiddle, but we were invited. So it wasn't we weren't there to be the heroes or the last ditch effort. We were literally the second line of defense, the last line of defense, rather than the front lines. So we literally we were almost double the number of the Kor'Kron Legion, to be honest. There were so many of us because the guild was so successful. I mean, we weren't all level 80 decked out to the teeth in PvP gear, but in terms of sheer number of bodies, there were easily twice as many Hawktotem as there were Kor'Kron going through the mountains and through Dwarven territory and running into these people. And we ran into several guilds, just trying to stop us because they knew we were on the way. We ran into an all-Dwarven guild, and I don't know what it is about Moonguard and having all of one race in your guild, or all of, there's a lot of themed guilds running on, and most of them are drawn on racial lines. I don't know why, but the only ones that tend to have racist tendencies are the Blood Elves, but that's because they're Blood Elves. They're supposed to be racist. But yeah, we ran into Dwarven mountaineers, and and had to fight them. And then we ran into like a contingency of different Stormwind guards that were out on like epic paladin mounts. And then we ran into not really bandits, but like a group of like mountain men that were all in the same guild that wanted a piece of us, and we basically had to like chew our way through all these people, and it didn't take them long to realize where we were going, because if you wanted to go to Ironforge, you had to go left, and if you wanted to go to Stormwind, you had to go right, and like up through the mountains and through this pass and beyond that tunnel and up through this valley, and like just going a whole bunch of other different ways, because Stormwind is like nestled in the heart of Alliance territory, so there's no mistaking where we're going. And one day, while we're in the middle of the mountains, we're on like leg 3 of a 5-leg journey, because there's so many regions between us and Stormwind, and we're like each night we're like role playing, going through one region at a time, and if there's an Alliance guild there, we can fight rather than just walk along the road, and it made it a lot more interesting. So the sheer number of people involved in this campaign of us traveling to Stormwind was very impressive. So what we did next, we were up in like the Dwarven Mountains. There was this high-rise road that like had a sheer cliff and like 2 tunnels on it, but there was this open area. And the Kor'Kron suddenly stop, and they say, oh, there's Dwarven Mountaineers up ahead of us, and they've got, X number of paladins all lined up. And I said, oh god, there's a guild out there that's just paladins, and again, this was before the Horde could be paladins at all. Well, actually, no. Blood Elves could be paladins. But, I digress. There were no Blood Elves among us. But they wheel out all these paladins all lined up in a row on their epic golden paladin mounts. And they go, huh, look at all those paladins helping out the dwarves. And I go, yeah. And by some strange way of like alignment of the stars, and we had this 5-leg journey, and on the 3rd leg, none of our leaders were on one night. Like out of all the Hawktotem, Haranu wasn't on, the warrior lieutenant wasn't on, the druid lieutenant wasn't on, none of our regular leaders were online. And they go, well, who's left? Do we have any like officers online? And then suddenly somebody turns and goes, well, Mundle's an officer. We should have him lead. And I'm like, oh shit. So at that point, I had been in the Hawktotem tribe long enough that I had been given responsibility for the guild bank, which was a big deal, because in WoW, when you've got like a ton of treasure but you don't want to like keep it all on one character, or you've got a bunch of people that are willing to share their supplies and don't want to just sell it, or they'd rather benefit the guild than just make a little bit more money, things like that, you would throw all your stuff in the guild bank. Well, given that there were so many Hawktotem tribe members, we had a humongous rich piles of items kind of guild bank, just filled with shards and gems and epic armor, money, potions, food, and it would just get jumbled out of control like every day, and you could never find what you wanted, and people would go away frustrated. Well, after I had been away, or after I had been a part of the Hawktotem tribe for long enough, I was like appointed as like vault keeper. So I made one tab into food and one tab into gems, one tab into like shards and food, and on and on and on. And it would be my job basically on like a daily basis to like look through our guild bank and all these hundreds of items and like arrange them so that you could get what you wanted, and then like anything that was like too low level or wasn't being touched or used in over a month, I would take it, sell it, and then put the money into the guild bank. So if we wanted to hold like a lottery for epic flying, or if somebody was trying to buy an epic piece of gear and it was like 5,000 gold, and if they were high enough prestige with the guild or respected enough, we would give them the 5,000 gold and they could go get it, and they'd be happy. But it was my job. I'm kind of OCD, so I was very good at it. And being that I was a vault keeper, and I had to have pretty much unlimited access to the bank, so they made me into an officer so I could take things out as much as I needed to rearrange things and put it all back. I never stole anything. It's my job, and they were really good to me, so it never really occurred to me to do anything bad. But I was, by all technicality, an officer of the Hawktotem tribe. And on the third leg of this journey, suddenly Haranu's not online, and so-and-so's not online, and so-and-so's also not online. Well, who does that leave for, guild leaders to lead the Hawktotem tribe against all these dwarves and this big group of paladins that suddenly shows up between, just beyond this thin line of Kor'Kron? I was like, and they turn and they go, Mundle's here. And I'm like, oh God, I'm the banker, not the general of the army. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. So what I had them do, and again, we were following the Kor'Kron's rules. The Kor'Kron have to have the first stab at things, and the Hawktotem are not allowed to go into the battle until the Kor'Kron all fall or until the Alliance rushes into our group of people. So what I had them do, I said, okay, we're all going to stand at the lip of this tunnel so we can't get blown off the side of the canyon or feared off or anything like that. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder, and we're not going to move, okay? And it's I had to basically stand there and steady, Hawktotem, steady, that kind of thing, so they wouldn't go into the fight. And these mountaineer dwarves, mostly hunters, actually, because I saw a lot of muskets come out. These mountaineer dwarves just after a while shred through the Kor'Kron, because there's just not enough bodies there. The Kor'Kron were all very strong, PvP oriented, you're in the army now kind of people, but they were so few in number. There were only maybe 25 of them there. And they get, they fight, and they fight valiantly, and they take down a bunch of people, but eventually they're all dead. And there's still a bunch of Alliance standing. So of course they immediately charge into the Hawktotem, who have their Thunderbluff banners standing up, and they're brown with black or brown with green, whatever, and they charge straight into us. And there are sheer enough Hawktotem and druids doing AoE damage that we actually managed to take them down. And like I said with the arena fight with Grimful, is there were several rounds to determine what would happen, and every time it was the same. The Kor'Kron would fight, and then, fight and take a bunch of people down. Then they would get killed, and then the remaining Alliance would rush into the Hawktotem and get killed themselves. So it was the Kor'Kron were the first line, but they were also the first line to fall, and there weren't enough Alliance to take on the Kor'Kron and then rush straight into the Hawktotem, because the unspoken rule is that if you go into an RP battle, if you die, you stay dead until it's all over. So you couldn't run over and resurrect all your buddies in the middle of a fight, because that wasn't fair. So it got to the point where they would rush into us and then just die, because there were so many Hawktotem there compared to the Alliance. And again, that's us recruiting every Tauren we come across in the low-level areas who would just level up and be loyal to us. So we had this monster guild of people that would always show up at guild meetings and always show up for battles. So when we were going across this mountain range, it was the Kor'Kron would fight and die, and then the Hawktotem would just keep going. So, I wasn't the leader the rest of the way. It was just that one night. It was really weird that Haranu and none of the other lieutenants were there. And then suddenly the vault keeper, or the banker of the guild, is leading us into battle. That was weird. But I digress. Eventually, we came, through the Dwarven Mountains and beyond that little area, and we came to the region where Stormwind lay. And we knew we couldn't charge in straight through the gate because, guards would spawn, and the main general of Stormwind is right there, and things like that. But we could, kind of sneak in through the harbor. So what we do is we all group up and, we hop on our mounts, because now we have to be serious business because, NPCs and, endlessly respawning guards are not going to play nice with us. So we strap on our PvP gear and we hop up on our mounts and we charge into Stormwind to kill the king, or to kill whoever the faction leader is there. I don't remember if the King of Stormwind was there during Wrath of the Lich King. I think he was, yeah. Yeah, because he trades insults with Thrall at some point. He was missing for a long time in WoW's lore. He was like, he had amnesia and he was in an arena somewhere fighting endlessly, but it's like a major achievement to go into the opposing faction's city and then kill their leader. So we ran the Kor'Kron Legion and the Hawktotem tribe and a few stragglers that decided to come along with us because, who wouldn't, to go and kill the king. And as soon as we hit the city, half of us get kicked off the server. And it's like the sudden rush of the sudden number of people, we just all suddenly get kicked off the server. So we all had to leave, get everybody back online, and then slowly antline into the city because the server could not take that many people running into Stormwind in the late evening when things were busy anyway. You would only ever get lag in WoW in the major cities like Stormwind, Orgrimmar, Darnassus, Shatra, anywhere where the high level people hung out. There would be a lot of them, and it would lag all to hell. And then suddenly 2 armies rush into Stormwind. Yeah, we crashed things for a while. Or rather, the server didn't like that and it kicked us offline. So we eventually, all of us, slowly got into Stormwind. We took over the harbor, killed all the guards that came close enough. And then we rushed up through the city straight to the king. And, by then the Stormwind City Guard, the guild, has strapped on their PvP gear and they're there to stop us. And, and again, sheer number of bodies gets by. WoW doesn't have very many opportunities for sheer numbers to speak. Their battlegrounds, it's always 10v10, or 15 versus 15, or, 25 versus 25, or 40 versus 40. It's never, you can never bring, more guys unless you're doing, world PvP, which is, you have to organize it yourself. So, because we brought more people, we mowed straight through them, went all the way up to the king and killed him. And he's the king of Stormwind. He's a faction leader, so he basically fights like a raid boss. And it took all of us to kill him. And then we're like, yeah, we took over Stormwind. We're awesome. We killed King Varian Wrynn, and we put horde banners all over the throne room because you could get a banner for a city if you were exalted with them. Again, a reputation item. So we had a bunch of Orgrimmar banners, and then the Hawktotem started dropping Thunderbluff banners all over the place. And there were 10 times as many Thunderbluff banners than there were Orgrimmar banners, but it was still funny to just it was like a group of trees had suddenly spawned up in front of this throne room, and he wouldn't, I don't think if you kill a faction leader, I don't think they respawn for an hour. So he was gone. We killed him. And then we're like, okay, we're here to support the Kor'Kron Legion, or, the ones that decided to show up that night. We had way more Hawktotem than Kor'Kron, but they're like, okay, what do we do now? It's now we wreak havoc. So we ran around, we killed, anybody that was brave enough to flag for PvP. We killed bankers, we killed auction house people, we went to kill all the vendors that we could find just to, fuck with the Alliance. And we were in Stormwind for an hour and a half, just running the place. And the forums were of course on fire with people complaining, writing tickets to the GMs to, they've taken over our city and they're not leaving, it's interrupting our gameplay and blah blah blah. It's well, what are you gonna fucking do about it? We brought the sheer number of bodies. We've taken your city and we're gonna stay here for a while. So that's basically what we did. We hung out in clusters of 3 and 6 or whatever. The Stormwind City Guard, there just weren't enough guys to pose a threat to us. And we just kept killing NPCs, anybody brave enough to flag up, and we ran the town for like 2 hours. And then the GMs actually stepped in, which is a rare thing in World of Warcraft, to see the physical embodiment of a GM. It used to be you would have to like write a ticket and they would whisper you and you'd see like the little blizzard mark next to their name. We actually like caused enough havoc to like summon up the avatar of a GM, which was weird. And they're not anything fancy. They have these they're all human as far as I know. They have these black robes with dark blue, and they're very basic looking characters. They don't have like any special weapons or powers or anything like that you could noticeably see like in a crowd. But we turned and we saw a GM standing in the middle of Stormwind, and there wasn't like any kind of flash of light or anything, but after we saw him, I think it was a him anyway, I didn't dare go close enough because they can launch you into the sky if they want to. But after that person showed up, whenever somebody on our side died, they had to wait 15 minutes in order to respawn. Like, if you get killed in World of Warcraft, your armor takes some damage and you have to get it repaired later, but you can run back to your body from the closest graveyard and just jump up immediately, unless you just get killed over and over, and then this timer works its way up. But he placed a 15-minute timer on every member of the Horde in Stormwind. So whenever they died, it was 15 minutes before they could respawn. And he basically forced us out of the city. It took the act of a Blizzard employee jumping onto the server and like fucking with us to force us out of Stormwind, because we stayed there to just mess with the Alliance for so long with so many different people. But we went home. We killed the king. We took over the city until the GMs forced us out. We had a big party. We threw down like cakes and feasts and campfires. We danced in Orgrimmar. We went drinking in the taverns, fucked bar wenches, all the stuff you're supposed to do when you win big battles. And that was like the culmination was, we went and we killed the king of Stormwind, And there are like blitz groups that do that. There's, they could gather 20 people, run into the city and have a pretty good chance of killing him. But we slowly went from region to region fighting other guilds, and they knew we were fucking coming. So the fact that we still made it and still killed him and still took over the city for 2 hours was a really big deal. So we got the achievement for killing the King of Stormwind. We got the achievement for killing X number of Alliance in their own city and things like that. And it was great. It was a great night. But thankfully, after that, things kind of calmed down. The Hawktotem weren't especially happy with the Kor'Kron after that, because we started the event, and like I said, it was a 5-leg journey, so it was going to be a 5-night event, and then on the 6th night we were going to attack Stormwind. The Hawktotem weren't especially happy with the Kor'Kron after that, because we started with like 30, 40 Kor'Kron, and then we had a few lesser the next night, and a few lesser the next night, and a few lesser the next night. And by the time we got to Stormwind, we had maybe 20, 25 Kor'Kron to our 40 or 50 Hawktotem, and they were the ones running the event. So it was like, do they not have the willpower to participate when they're supposed to be like the hardcore killing stuff army guild, when we're the nomadic semi-peaceful Hawktotem tribe, when we brought more dudes than you? Come on. So it was a little strained for a while, but otherwise it went really, really well. I don't know what it was. The Alliance just, I didn't know why, like, I was expecting the Stormwind City Guard to like all group up, like rally themselves, and then like sweep over us somehow, because we were wandering around in little groups that you could have just killed off. But it was very light resistance, and the presence of a GM said that much, that we had to be like forced out by the game's rules and not so much by the game's mechanics. So it was a little iffy in terms of when we were actually forced out, and who actually forced us out. And of course Kor'Kron and Hawktotem were just hated by the Alliance after that, and the forum was all full of people flaming us that we were such assholes for cutting people off from the auction house and killing vendors and stuff. Well, flag up and fight us. It's not most everybody has a level 80. I mean, even then, like, Mundle was still a 60 at the time. There were easy targets among us. You've got balls, use them. Gather up your buddies and fight back. It took them, we must have arrived there at 6 in the evening. The GM must have arrived at 8, and we weren't gone, like, completely from the city until almost 9. So we were there for most of like the heavy traffic time of the evening. We were there just messing with Stormwind and killing NPCs and anybody that came to fight us. I was like, well, that was the Kor'Kron / Hawktotem campaign, and it was pretty much a success. So it was like anybody that was gonna fight us should have been there. Like the Dwarven Mountaineers could have showed up in Stormwind, or that group of paladins that showed up on the cliffside could have been there, or hell, the Stormwind City Guard could have had more bodies there. Or sent out a call. In a roleplay server, it's really easy to like ring a bell. And sometimes in like a certain place's defense, they'll say, this village is being attacked by Horde, or this village is being attacked by Alliance. People will jump onto their 80s and come fight. It's like ringing the militia bell. People will come. So I don't know if they just didn't care until he'd actually taken over the city, or like nobody bothered to say, hey, there's a huge group of Horde coming. We need people on the front line. We need more bodies. Things like that. They just didn't want to. Or what happened, but by the time we got there, it was way too late. So that was kind of that. Next up, after we were done with like the Kor'Kron Legion's campaign against Stormwind, and we didn't really like say that the King of Stormwind was dead in our storyline. That's we didn't go that far, but like, we dealt a pretty heavy blow against the Alliance, and immediately there was going to be some repercussions. And that's when things kind of started to go downhill for the Hawktotem tribe, because you can't attack the Alliance seat of power without getting hit back. It's like America was not in the World War until somebody Pearl Harbored us. So we kind of awoke the sleeping giant. And we received word that the Alliance was going to attack Thunder Bluff, which is the Tauren city. And, the Hawktotem hear of this, and we immediately, we double time it. We don't walk this time. We double time it back to Mulgore. There's this place, there's only one place for the Alliance to get into Mulgore, because when you're on foot, there's only one way in and out. So we go to like fortify like pretty much the hot gates, like in 300, and we go to fortify this one location. There's a village right next to it, and we've been reading like the patch notes, and this was like right before Cataclysm came out. And two of the things that were going to happen when Cataclysm came out was that particular village was going to be destroyed, like in Canaan. The buildings were going to be tumped over, and there was going to be like wreckage added, and the NPCs were going to be gone. That village was going to be destroyed when Cataclysm started. And at the same time, the hot gates like area was going to have an actual gate built there that made of wood for some reason, but like Thunder Bluff was going to defend itself by putting this big, giant, like really thick wooden gate with towers and archers standing on it, because in Canaan, the Alliance came and destroyed this village and tried to make for Thunder Bluff. So the Taurans stopped them and built this gate up there to defend their homeland. So what we were going to do was, before Cataclysm hit, we were going to have this huge battle in that village, and the eventuality was that we had to lose, because that was what's going to happen in terms of what the game was. But we wanted to have an actual like battle over it, and it was in this area called the Barrens, and all the Hawktotem showed up, and a bunch of Alliance showed up, and they did. Each side like tallied their numbers like before the event started. It's very formal, like setting up cross-faction stuff. The leaders have to talk and they have to do numbers and blah 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 to make sure it's at least relatively fair. A date, a time, when's going to happen, etc., etc. To set this battle up over this village, and the Hawktotem were supposed to lose, and the village would be destroyed, and then the Tauran, Cataclysm would hit. The village would look destroyed, and the gate would come up, and the Hawktotem would take credit for the gate, pretty much, in our server at least. So we meet there, and the Hawktotem like make camp in this village, and Mundul is like laying down feasts and passing out sharpening stones, because he's like raided the vault pretty much to make ready for this battle. And a ton of Alliance show up, and a ton of Horde show up that aren't Hawktotem. And we did a count for like number of sides. The Hawktotem pulled in a bunch of allies, including the Kor'Kron Legion. And I don't remember who the attacking side was, but it was several rather large Alliance guilds. And we did like a numbers count, and there were people like shooting like with fraps to like document the battle, because it was so many people. And the eventuality was that there were over 250 players like combined from both factions, counting everybody who was present there. There were over 250 people fighting in this tiny village out in the middle of nowhere, because the Barrens is a desert. It has one little town called the Crossroads, and then it's desert, and there's like a dungeon hidden off to one side, but it's nothing. There's nothing there. It's the coastline, and if you go down the one path, it leads to Thunder Bluff, but there's nothing out there. It's flat. There's no cover. There's the monsters there are like level 12, so there's no big threat there. And 250 motherfuckers show up, decked out in their PvP gear, passing out feasts and whetstones and buffing spells, and then they smash into each other, and the server crashed. Oh my god. It was amazing. I was there when we crashed Moonguard at the Battle of the Barrens. That's what we ended up calling it. After all was said and done, was the Battle of the Barrens. The two sides, whenever you gather, X number of people into any given spot, and while the server tries to compensate in that particular location, which is why there are zones and like regions that are locked from each other, which is why if you go into a dungeon, you can only have 5 people in there, or however many it is. We had 250 people in the Barrens. The Barrens, being a desert, being relatively uninteresting, and being level 12 through level 18 or whatever it is, was not meant to have 250 people in it, much less 250 people fighting. So the armies crashed into each other, and we fought for maybe 40 seconds. And then I started like down at the bottom, it said so-and-so has gone offline, so-and-so has gone offline, so-and-so has gone offline, and like 2/3 of us on both sides were just kicked off the server, and then I got kicked off the server, and it said Moonguard has crashed, something, thank you for your patience, we'll be right back, or something like that. It said something about the server crashing, thank you for your patience, give us, I think it said like 3 minutes or whatever it was to get everyone back online. So by the time I got back online, there were bodies everywhere as far as the eye can see. There were people running in place. There were people like running against the walls, not doing anything. There were people spinning in circles. You know, this battle did not happen. There were there were too many people there. We couldn't the World of Warcraft could not stomach that many people in one place. So after having done that, we kind of called it a draw, and we decided that the village, like in our Canaan or whatever, we decided that the village was the only casualty. Because two armies crashed into each other, and then everybody disappeared and ran in different directions and spun in circles, so like a madness hit us all. And the server crashed. People were pissed. You know, because there were people in dungeons, there were people doing raids. This was the middle of the night. There were people doing raids, there were people doing, like, important, like, actually playing the game kind of stuff. They were pissed. Oh my god. So, you know, then, you know, Cataclysm hit, and that village became its, like, destroyed form. And, you know, we hated the Alliance, rah, for destroying our village, and the Hawktotem, quote-unquote, built the gate to protect Thunder Bluff. And things kind of went from there. But I will always remember the time when we crashed the server at the Battle of the Barrens. My god.